everyone, and welcome to episode 46 of From the Middle. We are three middle-class guys living in the middle of America, in the middle chapter of life, with a point of view somewhere in the middle. I'm one of your hosts, Dylan, and then the other two screens, the talking heads, will eventually be Kendall and Corey.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
If you've never listened to this podcast before, we are three guys that like talking entertainment, society, culture, really anything that we fancy, and try to have some fun being idiots along the way. So thank you for tuning in to From the Middle.
We do appreciate it, and we have been looking forward to this episode very much. We are sitting on a pile of communications from our loyal listeners and friends, and we call those folks Middlers if you're new to the cast. And so this is From the Middlers 5, number 5, and we are excited to get into a litany of correspondence with you guys. Before we do that, however, do we have any updates we want to share? What's going on in y'all's lives?
Where am I on your screens? Which one am I?
Top left.
You're in the bottom on mine.
Pointing like that.
But the one that matters is Corey, so you're top left. Corey is my top left.
Why do I matter?
Because you're the one recording the screen, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So the folks are going to see wherever you are.
That's
on yours
true.
here.
Yeah.
We thought this was a joke, like to stab at one other brother in the side, like that one brother is more. It's not a joke. Anyways, updates. This is kind of minor, but I'm curious to get any feedback from anyone that might care. So we talk a lot about different TV shows. In fact, our most recent episode was, our favorite TV shows of all time. We talk a lot of movies, and I kind of got to this point with my queues or my list across various social media platforms where there was so much old stuff that I had queued up literally years ago that I hadn't watched yet, that it honestly, there's some people complain about there's not enough to watch on Netflix. I had like 200 some things in my list on Netflix. Then I'm just scrolling endlessly through so much. It's every genre is represented. So today, actually, I literally wiped out my queues, completely cleared my queues on the three main streaming services that I use just to start over. So not like I cleared out things I thought I wouldn't end up watching, like literally down to zero. There's 0 titles in there on any of the main platforms that I use. I just got to the point where I was like, there was too much, and I need to just start with a new list and actually only try to add things that I plan on watching soon. And I just didn't want to have to start at 250 and figure out how to like whittle it down on each service. I just needed to start over. So I'm curious if anyone has been there, done that, has thoughts on it. But there were too many things.
I'm very much just a browser. That's I'll have it in my head, maybe a couple titles that I'm interested in, but if I'm not in the middle of a series, if I am in the middle of the series, I'm watching nothing else. Mm-hmm. If I'm not, I'm literally just turning it on and flipping until I find something, and I try that. And if I like it, then I go through the series. If I don't, then I surf until I find another one. That's how I roll.
I forget which comedian I was just listening to, but he's like, we all have those movies in our lists that you've scrolled past for years. And it's such an immediate gratification thing of like, what mood am I in right now? And what do I want to see right now? Like documentary, you very much have to be in the mood for. Comedy, And so he was like, you have all these titles that you're like, nah. But it's for some reason still in your list. So I get that. How do you feel? Do you feel like you feel naked, or does it feel like an exciting new day?
It feels good. Honestly, I think the main thing, there was a lot of shows that I was watching that were live, like through Hulu and stuff before we had our daughter. And most of those just kind of fell off, almost all of them. And so it just felt like there was a lot of stuff that I had added in a different chapter of my life, and that the list just doesn't need to be that long anymore. And unlike Kendall, I can bounce between things. It just depends on what it is. So if it's a brand new, like exciting drama or something, I'm probably going to watch straight through it. But like I go back and watch old stuff that like you don't. So I'm always going to have something like The Office in my queue because I pick up and watch sections of it at a time.
Yeah.
So there's there's shows that I'm inevitably going to add back in. Like the Office never really is going to leave my queue until it's not on Netflix anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I'm going to watch chunks of it, 2, 3, 4 episode chunks at a time. But it feels good. It feels like now I can kind of restart and go, yes, I could see myself watching this in the next week or two. And if not, I'm just going to take it out.
You Marie Kondo'd your Netflix list.
I did. Yeah.
Does it bring me joy?
And honestly, I didn't even want to look at all the things that I was like, I had to do it in the web browser because it was so much faster, because I could just rapidly click X to like all the way down the side as it refreshed. I didn't even want to see the titles because I knew I'd start bargaining with myself. Like, no, that documentary did look good. So I didn't even it felt good. It was like, just clear it all out and I'll start over. And the first thing I'll add back in will be The Office, and then a couple other shows I know I'm going to keep rewatching. But other than that, yeah, it feels good.
That's awesome. So my only update is that it's Dylan's birthday.
Woo!
A really cute story about that, and it starts out sad, but you got to just hang. So Chloe, our middle daughter, she's 10. She's very sensitive, and the governor announced today that Ohio schools were probably not going to resume for the year. And so we had to tell the 2 older girls, are really the only ones that care, Casey's in preschool. We had to tell them that and we had warned them, it's highly possible that you won't go back to school this year. Now, Chloe, the middle one, is in a building where at the end of 4th grade, they do a clap out and then you go to the next building. So they walk through the halls and all the other classes clap them out. And then parents make and buy signs, have signs made up that are out on the front lawn. So they walk out of that building for the last time. Yeah. So at first hearing the news, she was like, Sherry did a great job, making it as positive as possible. And you just see, we're at the dinner table and you just see her start to realize the things that aren't going to happen to wrap out the year. And she's so sweet, and she just kind of looking down at her almost completed plate said, am I gonna get to go to the classroom just one more time? Because she wants to see say goodbye to the room and get her belongings that are in her desk. And it's so sad, and they're probably gonna figure out a rotation where they can go in and get their stuff. So she was pretty dejected at dinner, but we got through it and we were laughing about other things. But one of the things that brought her joy tonight was I said, I would love to have something for Dylan on the podcast. So she made you fudgy chocolate mug cake.
Oh, awesome.
And so I'm going to give it to you.
Ready?
Okay, ready? Blow it out. Oh, that's awesome.
Oh,
that's man, I wish I had a brother. If I had a brother, I'd be able to do that thing where I would blow and it would come out of his mouth. That'd be cool.
So she got out her complete cookbook for young chefs and made you the fudgy chocolate mug cakes. And she had so much fun making that for you.
Awesome.
So while we record, I'm going to eat it. And
great.
And then I made you a little something. I'm going to share my screen. Tell me when you can see it.
I got it.
Hey.
That's awesome. Look at that.
I love it.
Like a little Finn.
So hold on. I don't know if it's on the right screen, if it's being recorded. I might have to drag it over here. Hold on. Can you guys still see it?
Nope.
No.
Now it looks like a menu where you pick something.
It says welcome back to Illustrator.
Okay. Well, I hope that shares. If not, we'll share it.
If not, we'll figure it out. We'll cut it in.
Yeah, so I made that for you today, and I'm not quite finished yet, but I wanted to be able to show it to you.
That's awesome. Well, thank Chloe for me, and thanks for the picture. That's fantastic.
No problem, man. So now I just got to figure out. We're learning Zoom, y'all. This isn't this isn't a smooth operation.
We've got all kinds of tech figuring outings today.
Yeah. So I hope you guys can see that. If not, we'll share that to our Facebook page. And before we get into these voice messages, emails, and stuff with you guys, we have created a Facebook group.
Woo.
Not just a Facebook page for From the Middle, but a Facebook group. And so this will be a good place for us to share that as well. So it is called From the Middle for the Middlers for now. We've changed the name, I think 5 times. It was FTM. And then Dylan told us that had different connotations on like Craigslist meetups and things like that. So we changed the names. We've changed the names. But anyway, we want to interact with you guys there. And we already have like 70 some members. And so please find the From the Middle for the Middlers Facebook group. And you can,
if you're asking yourself why it's different than the Facebook page, we don't know yet. But we're sure that there's
come on now. See, I love Facebook groups. It's the only thing that I use Facebook for. And I've got like 4 or 5 groups that I'm a part of, and I interact with those people, and that's basically all I want. That's to me, that's what Facebook is groups. So,
and you used to moderate a message board, right?
Yeah, a long time ago, back before Facebook groups were a thing, and people still went to message boards.
So that's cool. So, whoops, I just dropped the spoon. But hey, your mug cake is really good.
That's awesome. I had no doubt.
So we've organized the voice messages by dating back to the the episode it is referring to. So we start with our first one, and it starts at episode 38. This is a voice message from Drew.
Yep, it'll be just a second, because as we were talking, I'm going to just call out an elephant in the room.
Yep.
About figuring out technology stuff. Long story short, I made the realization that I'm going to have to switch headphones every time we do this. So
it's not like there's 12 of them, you know.
And for any concerned listeners, my cough is not the coronavirus.
But here we go.
I have spring allergies, and it creates a very itchy throat. And I use lots
Hello
of
from the middle team. This is Drew Gray. Kendo, I don't know you, but longtime friend of Corey and Dylan. Wanted to say hello and thank you for the entertainment as I travel across the Midwest, shockingly enough. Reason for the call, I was just listening to episode 38 yesterday, and I would like to throw out a challenge to the From the Middle team, one or all of you, specifically Dylan, because he has a very distinct taste for pizza, and I also enjoy pizza, and I want to go around Columbus, say 4, 5, 6 different places, maybe in a day, and let's just see who has the best pizza around town, and then you'll have an official nominee, whether it's local or it's not local, to your actual neighborhood. But I want to see if you're up for the challenge. Talk to you later, boys.
All right. So I'm not sure what the challenge is other than he just wants to eat pizza with me. But of course I'm game. The Ronavirus has us inside, so we're going to have to figure out what this looks like as we go forward and more things open. But Drew, to answer your challenge, absolutely. I would love to go around and eat at food places with you. We can try out like some of the thin crust options.
Oh yeah, you gotta hit at least. I mean, there's at least a couple different types of the thin crust options.
We can try far superior hand tossed and New York style pizzas, and
which is also a thin, like as thin as the thin crust. It's just a different texture.
Different texture. The edge of the crust is different.
Right.
You got that too. But yeah, I'm game. I think we're all game. I think the only rules would probably have to be that you just have to get the same toppings just to try to give everybody a fair shake. But other than that, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, Drew obviously sent this voice message before the shelter-in-place orders. And even though in one of our last episodes I just, established that I don't really love pizza, I like it. If I'm invited, I'll join you guys.
Guys, there's again, shelter-in-place orders don't try this because people could die. But when you have a situation that people are coming over to your house and there's going to be dinner involved, instead of one of these times cooking or having a traditional potluck, you have everybody order takeout from their favorite pizza place, and they all bring it over to your place, and you sample each other's pizza. And that is, I have done that once, and it was a magical night. And maybe something like that would
That's
be
a good idea. That's a good idea. We'll have to
Now,
see it through his down.
you would have to coordinate it to make sure that like there aren't two different like crispy thin crusts showing up at the same time. But something like that could work.
I'm game of any of those things.
Challenge accepted, Drew.
Yes.
We are down for some pizza consumption. Our next message is an email. And so, Kendall, you don't have to switch headphones just yet.
Because I just dropped the other pair.
This is after the episode where we were talking about the XFL. And this is a mystery middler. We don't know who this person is. They sent us some artwork. Well, Kendall might have an idea of who this is.
I do have an idea.
But they also sent us some artwork dating back to an even earlier episode about the Mandalorian, which was half man, half DeLorean. And there's some new artwork. I'm excited to show you guys, but let me read the email first. Dylan, Kendall, and Corey. Kendall is the only name that's spelled correctly. Maybe that's a clue. Greetings from me to you. You spoke of the XFL with such excitement and wonder. The prospect of a farm league for the NFL could be game-changing. And speaking of game-changing, the new rules and obstacles you debated inspired me yet again. Corey, I would love your hot take on my latest artistic endeavor. I believe I captured all of the elements of Sports Ball X. Love, Damascus. So I'm going to open that and share that too.
And man, the only downside of delaying some of these fan interactions is the XFL is now defunct.
What?
Yeah, it's dead.
Do you guys see that?
Oh man.
Yeah, I like Nitro.
I like the Rey Mysterio mask on that.
Yeah.
Definitely steroids.
Yeah, definitely not steroids.
Oh yeah, definitely not steroids. Random geometric obstacles. And then Golden Snitch for 150 points? Question mark.
Yeah, I mean at least 150 points.
So I didn't know it was defunct. How did that happen so quickly?
The coronavirus shut it down.
Well, right, but I mean it's defunct forever. Defunct? It's not going to come back.
I think it's done.
Wow.
I don't know if anyone's thrown around the word bankruptcy, but I think they basically let everyone go and said this season and at least next season are done, and probably done. So
we're so out of date.
We lost the AAF and we lost the XFL all in the first season of From the Middle.
Well, I'm feeling kind of bad. All right, we have another voice message from our good friend and king of the middlers, Jeremy Kester, and it's not going to be the last time you hear from him tonight, so don't you worry.
Bring it on.
Hey guys, I am standing in a library parking lot, because I'm purchasing something from someone online. It's a public, well-lit place, but it's at night. And it just occurred to me, a bunch of high schoolers just walked through, and it occurred to me that I'm now of the age where it is creepy for me to literally just be somewhere. I didn't have any behaviors. I didn't do anything. I didn't say hello. I'm just standing there. And you could just tell everyone is super uncomfortable. And I was realizing I'm now at an age where just existing somewhere is creepy. It's a terrible, haunting feeling. It's the worst.
Okay, I think we have to establish some facts he just gave us. At a library at night, so library probably not open.
Right,
yeah.
Standing by a car.
Mm-hmm.
Kester has a huge beard right now. Not that is a reason why we should prejudge people.
Not anymore.
But
15 years ago, much creepier than today.
I'm just saying, Kester, maybe it's less about your age and more just the setting.
Yeah.
Well, I think age has setting means there's somebody there who probably shouldn't be there. Age tells you more about why they might be there, right? So I think age would be like, that's a hooligan who's going to break in. But if he's older, then it's like he's looking for a drug deal, or I don't know.
Yeah, he's just standing. So there's that.
Well, yeah.
All these things are like in-game multipliers. So it's like every layer that he adds to what the situation is like times 2 times 2 times 2. And this is a really dicey subject because for a lot of reasons. But I think it's the situation is scaled up multiple times by him. He's alone, and it's late, and where he is. And if you're anybody else walking by somebody alone late, you might be nervous about what anyone else is doing. And then you can get into layers of what somebody looks like or whatever. But I think there's just a couple things working against them there.
Yeah, I think there's a couple obvious jokes that we're not going to say.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe just a fun little thing for the middlers at home who are middle aged and older. What are some things that you have noticed that you are too old to do because it is weird or creepy for you to do them at your current age, but you've cut yourself doing them anyway?
I mean,
what are those things?
I've had people try to really politely say, just based on I work away from home, I commute, sometimes I'm parked someplace sitting in my car. I've had people try to nicely tell me that I was very nervous about why a seemingly random man was sitting in his car in this place until I realized it was you. And so,
yeah.
Yeah.
There's what. Yeah, I've been over this before. Like when I've on the times that I preach the night before or a couple days before, like I need to talk, I need to speak out loud, and I feel uncomfortable doing it around anybody, including my family. I need to be by myself, and so I literally go to my car and I sit in like a Kroger parking lot at midnight, and I just imagine people driving by, seeing me with my dome lights on so I can read my notes, talking to myself at midnight in a parking lot, and I can just see them like they're going through McDonald's and they come back 15 minutes later and I'm still there doing the same thing. Yeah. Anyway, but what are those things?
That's an interesting thing. Like you could probably run through a whole bunch of scenarios, and for each of those scenarios, there's probably an age or a look about you that drastically changes people's perception of you in that situation. Even in the safest of places, a public place, a Starbucks or a Target, at a certain age, you could walk up to young people and say, "Hey guys, quick question." At a certain age, same thing. They're immediate, like, it's on the defensive.
Yeah, like at a Lego store.
What is it?
There's a comedian who makes the joke, and I don't remember. I think it's Jim Gaffigan, but I don't remember who it is. And they're talking about the difference that if you're a glasses wearer, the difference that 1 inch makes for how people perceive you. And the kid is talking to somebody, and then he moves the glasses 1 inch, and then he says the same thing. And the whole idea that literally 1 inch makes you crazy. And so, yeah, there's a lot of little nuances. People like to pretend like, well, it shouldn't matter what I look like or dress like. But if that were true, interviews wouldn't exist. You'd just hire whoever applied. And so
that's an interesting
thing to get into.
I think there's a there. We could do a whole series of like, what is the situation? And then just,
I don't want to do that job. We shouldn't. Anyways, moving on.
Okay, we have another
can of worms there.
Another voice message before we take a little break here from Dylan, a voice from the past.
From what?
Oh, not that kind of from the past.
Dylan, a voice from the past.
Yeah.
I see Nathan Gibson.
Yeah, that was.
Oh, okay. I'm confused because I don't know who Nathan Gibson is. Here she goes.
It's a he, but
Hey guys, Nathan here. First time caller. Listen to all 40 episodes every single week. I wish I could binge them,
40
but I
a
got to
week?
listen to it every week. So I got a lot to catch up on. First, I'm going to start with Schmanados. I used to love it. Dylan always hated it. Now apparently they've come out with a hand toss, but we don't have that in Chicago. I had Schmanados over Christmas break when I was back in Ohio, and it was disgusting. I was extremely disappointed. Next thing, this is for you, Kendall. Nalgene and rock climbing was totally a thing in Columbus. You just had to be around the right people. And I was in the design community. I guess that's one of the spots where Nalgene and rock climbing was a hit. So I'm totally on board with what you're saying and the crazy bottles.
So that was in two separate things. The pizza thing was in reference to episode 38, where we talked about pizza crust. And then the Nalgene rock climbing thing was episode 35, where Kendall tried to convince us that that was a thing, and we didn't believe it, but now he's vindicated. Thoughts,
But this is like 4 times over. I've been vindicated on that one.
all right. Nathan, I love that you left a voicemail, buddy. Him and I go way, 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 way back. And he's repping us in the Midwest out in Chicago. And I love it. Yes, Donato's is trash. And the hand tossed is better. I know you're listening. So the hand tossed is better. It's not it. Look, this is a guy who literally eats 3 foods. Okay. He knows pizza and chicken tenders and French fries. Those are the foods he knows. And I know that because I'm the one who got him into the second of the 3 things. Okay. Barbecue sauce on chicken tenders. Anyways, yes. Next time you're in Columbus, we'll go get some hand tossed Donatos, and it's better. So thank you for the voicemail.
Kendall, do you have thoughts?
Of course I do. First of all, how dare you question my pizza love and dedication and loyalty? Anyway, no, Donato's, I wouldn't choose Donato's over just about any place. There's a couple places I would choose Donato's over. I would choose Donato's over Papa John's. I would choose Donato's over Domino's any day for sure. I would choose Donato's over Pizza Hut. So when you're looking at chains, pretty much mom and pop places are better than all of the above. Donato's has gone downhill. I think their hand tossed is absolutely disgusting. I think their regular stuff has gone downhill, but it is still, in my book, quite edible. Those are my Donato's thoughts.
All right, we have time for one more voice message from Nathan, since we're showing him some love.
All right, guys, Nathan again. Let's talk about episode 40, You've Got to Be Kidding Me moments. So I'm listening to episode 40 while at the dentist, getting my teeth cleaned, and you guys start going in. I start cracking up. You've got to be kidding me. So the hygienist has to stop cleaning my teeth. I have to explain what I'm listening to, why I can't control my laughter. And ultimately, she is turned on to From the Middle podcast. And so now you've got a new listener in the Chicago area.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm sure she's going to love it. You guys got some great content. Keep it up. And as always, I love listening to you guys. So take care.
Kendall, like I said, he has impeccable taste.
I couldn't hear you until just now.
Oh, I said, like I told you, Nathan has impeccable taste.
So thank you, Nathan. We are excited to have another listener in Chicago. And we created a You Gotta Be Kidding Me moment by talking about You Gotta Be Kidding Me moments. That's awesome.
So good.
All right. So we got another voice message from my buddy Drew in reference to episode number 41.
Hey, fellas. This is Drew. I'm listening to episode 41, laughing hysterically, driving through the state of New York. Best 35 minutes of your 41 episode podcast so far. I love the randomness, the voices, Corey's story, Dylan's passion. I love that he thinks that plastic bags implode instead of explode, which means they would suffocate all the things that are inside your bag. However, I'm still laughing, hilarious. But I do strongly disagree with the car wash. I would easily pull around anybody in a car wash. And if anyone blocks 2 lanes on a highway, yep, I drive around. But I strongly agree with the McDonald's line and the self-checkout. See you, boys. Have fun.
I love you, Drew. I don't know how you agree with the McDonald's and the self-checkout, but not the car wash or the merge lane.
That is interesting. Yeah.
There's inconsistencies in your. We need to have Drew on the show anyway because he's a funny dude.
Explain yourself, Drew.
Yeah, he's gonna have to explain himself because I don't know how you're cool with 2 of those and not cool with the other 2.
Yeah. Well, especially one like the car wash one seems like it's, if not similar, the same as the McDonald's and the self-checkout thing, right?
That's the argument we were making.
Yeah. So at least that one.
Yeah.
That one I think needs to be explained.
He's differentiated them somehow.
Yeah.
And to be clear, I'm not an idiot about the word implode. I am an idiot, but not about that. I just think the word sounds funny. So if you're curious, I like the absurdity of using the word implode about something like a plastic bag.
So it's not ignorance, it's bad choices.
Right. Yes, that is my life in a nutshell. Thank you. So clear now.
I know what I'm doing.
It's just bad choices. Yes. No.
Now you understand.
That is the humor that implode is such an impractical word choice for something like a plastic bag. That was the joke. So
Good work.
Thank you for splaining it at me.
sure.
Oh man. All right. We got another voice message from Jeremy Kester in reference to episode 42, where we started talking about the middies and our favorites of everything.
You know, something that's unique about Joe Rogan too is most hosts bringing them on is either very adversarial or very much an endorsement. So if you go on the news on the left and the right, in general, when you have a guest, you're having them on to like destroy or eviscerate them, or you're having them on to just kind of do like a fluff piece of just, you know, how great they are. With Joe Rogan, it's weird because you don't really know where he stands. And I don't think he even knows where he stands. He just brings people in topically and he's like, mid-interview, he might be like, yeah, this guy's a hack. Like he might decide after listening that he doesn't buy it, or he might come in skeptically and decide and so it's a very interesting, I know I'm not saying anything new there, but it's an interesting thing to not know where he'll land by the end of the interview.
Yeah. I think we've talked about Joe Rogan many, many times, so I don't want to hash it out, I guess, too much. But even one of the things that I've noticed too with Joe Rogan is he'll bring someone on and everyone's dying to hear that person talk about whatever hot button issue that person is known for. And Joe Rogan might talk to that person for 2.5 hours and never touch that because he's just not interested. He'll bring in a controversial person and just talk to them about what kind of shoes they like. And that's what the podcast is about. Like I think that's interesting.
I do too. And then sometimes he dives right into the hot button thing just to get it out of the way so he can talk to them as a person and like call out the elephant in the other room and then just move on.
Yep.
Like the Roseanne Barr one after her tweets and stuff like that. Like he just,
yeah.
I mean, that ended up dominating most of that episode, but that's an example where he's like, clearly I'm not going to have her on and not talk about it.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. It does. So yeah. So I'm just saying sometimes like that happens. Like you just hear him talk for 2 hours about.
And I think that's what makes him believable and what makes him a good listener is that he doesn't come in with a bias or a strong bias. He might have thoughts and opinions, but he really does hear them out. And so as a viewer, that makes me feel like he's going to ask honest questions and be truly open to conversation.
Yeah, he doesn't come in without a bias, but he comes in with the rare ability to be able to check his own bias.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's well said.
I feel like most people can't do that. I mean, myself included, I have problems and issues with that. And that's one area where, like, I look up to Joe Rogan, and I wish that I could have a thought process kind of more similar to his with the way he addresses issues.
Yeah. In that same series of episodes, Kendall talked about one of his favorite sports moments being Nick Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl run. And so Jeremy Kester has a voice message about that.
Hey, from the middle overlord. Sorry for the background noise. I'm having a breakfast design session in the shower and was listening to your podcast and just thought, when Kendall was talking about Nick Foles, Nick who, first of all, great storytelling. But second of all, it reminded me of quite a few several like other stories. One of which, as an OSU fan, old Corduroy Jones, I forget his name, but winning as the third string quarterback. And there's been several other things where a surprise MMA fighter that takes a last minute fight, things like that have won. And it makes me kind of think of the fact that preparation is a huge part of the game. So everybody was preparing for the Patriots, but no one was preparing for Nick Foles. So I'm curious, could that be a strategy down the road in sports to take your best quarterback, your best whatever, your best fighter as far as you can go, and then purposely make a massive change that couldn't be scouted at the very end? I know that would be gutsy, scary, whatever, but I'd be interested to see if that'd be a reasonable strategy.
Can we talk about the fact that he said a breakfast design session in the shower?
Yeah, she clearly was in the shower.
I had
he's naked when he's recording that?
I had flashbacks to Kramer installing a garbage disposal in his shower. When he says breakfast creative session in his shower, I'm thinking, what are you eating that would be okay in the shower? I don't know. Anyways, I think that question's teed up for you, Kendall.
The strategy, I think it's a terrible strategy. I think the reason why it was such a big deal for Philadelphia was because it actually worked. And even obviously they only did it because they had no choice. That's why it was a big deal. And it's a big deal because that kind of thing typically I don't think would work. You see it sometimes in Major League Baseball, for example, where a team will start a pitcher and the other team has like their starting lineup has strategized to go up against the starting pitcher, and they'll bring their starting pitcher in. He'll pitch one batter and they'll take him out, and then bring in the guy who's really going to be, pitching for the next 7 innings. And it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
If you have the better guy who's up, you just keep him. That's my own thought. I mean, it's an interesting thing to try. I don't think anybody should do it on purpose.
I think Kester had one of those moments where it was it's just so crazy, it might work.
So crazy, it might work.
Another Kramer thing. And I like he called us the from the middle overlords. Oh, man.
See, Kester's one of those guys where like you need to go back and you need to listen to what he said because you missed some stuff. He's if Jeremy Kester was a sitcom, I would go back and re-listen.
All I've got to say to the overlord's comment is being an overlord doesn't pay like it used to. That's
we're on the Kester train here, so let's click the next one, also in reference to 42. The next handful are. This is all about the middies.
I think for me, and I hate to do this as a Buckeye fan, but I think for me, my biggest moment of 2010 sports moment was probably from Michigan. There was a point when we hadn't quite, we didn't know. We didn't have a crystal ball or anything. We didn't know how horrible Michigan was going to be. And Harbaugh came over, and there was just a lot of excitement. Maybe this would become a legitimate team again. Maybe there'd be a rivalry. And I just remember like how fun that was at that time. Now, obviously, they almost shut the program down after that, almost sold the school to Quiznos and, all that stuff. But we didn't know that at the time, which was really exciting. Like,
It was just, what is going to happen? And it's just that youthful exuberance, you know what I mean? So I just want to give a shout out to Kendall, give a Michigan story. I know there weren't any really in the running for 2010s. So I just wanted to give him that shout out because he's my favorite host. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. See, the saltiness that comes up when people just find out you are a Michigan fan causes them to say things.
You know what? Quit this phoniness that if I were living up in Michigan, I wouldn't get the exact same thing as an Ohio State fan.
Not at the same level, not with the same
I don't
vitriol.
want to hear it. Load of crap. That's a load of crap.
Half of the state of Michigan would be on your side.
Yeah, for one game a year. And
No, it's not what you. The Michigan State people, they hate Michigan as much as you do. They really do.
Yeah. So has said every Michigan fan I've ever talked to, but I've yet to find a Michigan State person that cares that much.
How many Michigan State persons do you know?
Several.
Okay, cool. I knew hundreds.
Close enough.
And I will point out too, if we're talking 2010s, I will read. I know that we live in the land of, if it's not Ohio State football, it's not a sport. But I will direct your attention to the world of basketball, and just look at the 2010s that the Michigan had in that sport.
Do you guys remember sports?
No.
Man.
Yeah, speaking of sports, I miss those.
All right, let's listen to another Kester voice.
Oh, I'm not ready. Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm usually on top of it. I'm all shook. All right, the shrinking one, right?
Yeah.
All right. Here she blows.
You guys had talked about how much of an achievement it is to like a game enough to pay for it. And Dylan, you've talked about your pay kind of ethic in the past on the podcast. I just wanted to share that, like, I'm probably at $30 a month if you count the non-professional software in like productivity, creative, little $2.99 a month apps. And the paywall to be into these spaces used to be so huge. It used to be many, many, many thousands of dollars up front for a camera, computers, art supplies, things like that. And now it's so much lower, but it's still keeping people out, which is interesting, right? It's still separating professionals from otherwise. And so there's apps like education apps. My daughter wants to be a nurse, missionary, my oldest. And I downloaded Complete Anatomy for her. Everything you would want in med school to reference the body, every layer. You can zoom in, you can parental controls. Like, it's unbelievable, the ability to dissect frogs, the ability to digitally to create digital things. And these things are so inexpensive, but it's still enough of a wall to keep people out. It's really interesting.
I agree with that. And I think I think of the art community or even masterclass, right? Where you learn from well-known comedians, actors, directors, writers, photographers, the cream of the crop who put classes out there for anyone to consume. And I don't know, it just feels like people's desire for learning and personal development isn't as high. And
I think
because it's accessible.
I think maybe going back to last week's episode talking about hard skills versus soft skills, and work ethic, and how all of those things apply. So the information barrier for virtually everything isn't there anymore. Like, you can get any information that you want right now. Libraries have existed for forever, but like the ease of getting to that information is at a level that's never been before. So that's obviously not it, right? People can do that. For other skills and trades and things, the equipment that he had referenced has gotten inexpensive enough to a point that a lot of people can afford it. There's still a wall there, a financial wall there for a lot of things, depending on what level you want to get into photography or whatever else. But it's not what it used to be. But all of those other things, like, do you love it enough that you're willing to sacrifice time and effort and in some cases relationships, and like, are you willing to go that far with all of the stuff that you have at your fingertips. And if you're not, and there are people who are, then they're going to run out in front of you.
Is it a volume thing too? Like there's so much of it, I don't even know where to start. And every one of these companies wants to create their own platform where you subscribe to them only. And that information is going to stop at a point. Now you got to go get another one, much like having all these streaming services, right? Like, just tell me which one the biggest one is with the most amount of information, and then I'll go there. Dylan, what are your thoughts?
I think part of the problem too is, this is maybe a much bigger conversation, but like there's far too much emphasis put on the degree itself. People, I think everything feels so competitive. People are looking at what's the thing that's most likely to get me ahead. And everyone's still being told it's a bachelor's, a master's, a PhD, whatever. And there's far less emphasis being put on what other kinds of education. If people thought they could take 3 or 4, what are those? You just said a master's class.
Master class is one company.
Yeah. If people thought they could take 3 or 4 master's classes and that would give them the edge in the next job they wanted or whatever, I think people would do it. We've talked before about like our grandpa, totally different era. Our grandpa took 1 semester of engineering classes and was able to work and retire from Ford after however many years. And he took 1 semester of engineering classes. Granted, he was in the Navy, so he had some alternative experience. But nothing's like that anymore. Everything requires minimum bachelor's degree, that's any kind of corporate job. Things that are requiring masters that don't need it. And I think far too much weight is being put on the piece of paper itself versus what other kind of education that you could be accruing. And I think if people felt like their career path would reward them for extracurriculars, so to speak, like self-improvement, master's class, individual sessions and seminars, I think people would do more of that if they felt like it was going to give them an edge, but I don't think anyone does. And I don't hear of anyone rewarding people doing that. I mean, you can throw a master's class on your LinkedIn, but is anyone taking that more seriously than, they read a Dale Carnegie book?
Right.
I guess if we think just from our own spheres of influence, how many of your friends, acquaintances, family members do you hear of saying, yeah, I went out and sought after 2 hours worth of like learning in whatever, in a hobby, in their career, in anything? It's clearly out there, but for some reason we're not. I mean, it's really interesting. A lot of thoughts. Kester with the good questions. He has another one on liturgy, Kendall, if you want to jump to that one.
I was listening to you guys talk about liturgy and the importance of that, and we talk about that in church a lot, of rehearsing truth to ourselves, because by nature we're not going to truth automatically. Truth is something that's really difficult to hang on to, and so I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about common issues that we bump into in other areas of our life, our marriages and our friendships and innovation and creativity. And that idea of applying truth prior to the exercise of the subjective nature of our mind and how we interpret it, but putting the truth in front of us first. I'm curious if that's something that would help in my relationship with my wife, for example. If I sat down and before we had an argument or a difficult discussion, we rehearsed what's true about ourselves and each other, ahead of the discussion. I wonder if that sort of liturgy and argument and things like that would be beneficial. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So yeah, liturgy is, it's sort of a form. It's a formulation of how you're going to go through things. It's also the actual deeds, if you will, of things that you do. So when you're talking about a church, I mean, literally anything that a church formalizes and does is going to be sort of their liturgy. So the term can be defined as widely as that. When we talk about liturgy, we normally think of sort of elements within worship service. Some people, even when they think liturgy, they're thinking robes and incense and candles and Latin, and but no. So having that sort of form, the way a way of doing things. It's preconceived, it's on purpose. And so applying that to relationships, or applying that to your marriage, for example, that you brought up, is good. I think it's advisable that you sit down with your spouse in a time when both of you are of a like mind, and say, hey, we argue sometimes and we're going to argue again. When we do that, I want you to know that, like, I've always felt this about you, even in those moments that we're arguing, and maybe even discuss sort of the rules, the terms and the agreements, like how are we going to formulate our arguments? And that's going to be very individual. Some people need time apart to process things. Some people need to figure things out right away. Some people need to be in the same room. Otherwise they feel a distance of love. Other people need to be isolated for a minute. So whether it's you need to pray with each other, whether you need some time apart, whether if one spouse needs time apart and one doesn't, maybe put a time limit on that, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, one day, whatever it needs to be. But no, I think the arguments and things, that marriages would be served well by having a form of how arguments should go.
My only thought is if liturgy, loosely defined, could also mean a set of practices or behaviors, then that is certainly something that we've adopted as it relates to marriage. Like, before we sit down and we're going to have a difficult discussion, we'll say, okay, what do we know to be true? Going back to the point about truth. Like, I love you. I know you love me. Okay, so let's establish some obvious truths. We disagree on this thing, but just, it's so healthy, I think, to remind yourself of that big truth. One of my mentors and spiritual coaches for a long time, like, that's one of the things that he told me to keep reminding myself, the phrase, what is truth? And that could apply on a whole different layers as you're believing lies about yourself, or you're feeling discouraged, or you're had a bad day at work and something somebody said is really sticking with you for a really long time, or something like that. Probably healthy to pull that apart, like, later, and dissect that and go, is there any truth there? But ultimately, what is truth about me, about who I am, about who created me? Like, that just practice of reminding yourself, I think Jeremy, is a really healthy thing.
Yeah.
Dylan, do you have thoughts?
You guys nailed it. It's great.
That's what we do.
All right. This is from Charles, and he said we don't need to air this, but Kendall was vindicated earlier, and I need a little vindication. So this relates to my deer hunting story from episode 42.
Hey guys, I've been catching up on some old episodes, and yesterday I listened to Corey's deer hunting story, and I just wanted to commiserate with him. I think his experience was not kind of unique. It was nearly universal. I think we've all been there. I felt every emotion of that. If I had a deer for every time I've shot at a deer, then I'd have a lot of deer, but I don't. Also, I'm now listening to your first quarantine episode where you're talking about panic buying, and it reminded me of this article that I read. I thought you guys would enjoy, talking about people in Gaza who have been under blockade since 2007 by Israel. And it talks about how they're laughing at videos of Westerners panic buying the wrong goods, perishable food, incomprehensible amounts of toilet roll. And they joke about starting online courses to teach proper stockpiling. Anyways, thought you guys might enjoy that. You don't have to air it or anything. Hope you're all staying safe, staying healthy. Talk to you later.
Well, Charles, we had to air it because, like I said, I needed vindication, and I really appreciate that. I'm learning as I tell that story and have forced other people to listen to it, that is a common thing. I think in a way I was ruined that I harvested a deer so early in my deer hunting career, because now the expectation is probably unrealistic. But yeah, I appreciate your comforting me. And then do you guys want to talk about the stockpiling thing? That's pretty funny.
Well, I don't want it to go without mentioning, and he very much did this on purpose for me, is that he used the term, it's not kind of unique. And followed it up by saying, but it's nearly universal. And so I just wanted to say, well done, Charles. I appreciate what you did there.
He's wily.
He is.
The stockpile, we've all known that that's crazy from the beginning. I still don't have an explanation. Yes, it's weird. I don't get it. Other people should be laughing at how we handled some of that. And that brings up a point that I won't go into any more than saying a lot of things, sports and politics and religion and culture stuff, we get very tribal, and it's okay to mock your own tribe sometimes. And so, yes, other parts of the world should have been mocking us for how much toilet paper we bought, among other things. But that's okay, because yes, it was absurd. And they probably should make videos to help us through some of this. Because yes, I don't understand it all.
Speaking of stockpiling, quarantining, and stay-at-home orders, we got an email from John. I want to read to you guys and just get your thoughts. Now, for context, this was almost a month ago. So, but he is reaching out to his fellow Middlers. Hey, Middlers, hope everyone there is healthy and responsibly participating in social distancing protocols. The last 2 weeks have been a bit intense, especially here in Ohio, with some of the fastest adoption of measures to flatten the curve. I work for a company that has the advantage of technology and teams in place to allow almost all of our associates to work from home. It has been a journey, especially with coworkers who are parents that may have kids staying home or learning virtually while they are trying to maintain their routine. Several coworkers have even started Rocket Chat channels to share stories, laugh, and commiserate over fun and infuriating shenanigans that they are coping with day to day as they balance roles of company man, teacher, and parent. Finding the humor in difficult situations can be a key to working through them. I am wondering what you or other Middlers may be experiencing and learning about a more virtual way of living in quarantine that might help us appreciate the situation for both what it is and what it can be.
I found that my stockpiles of athletic shorts are finally paying off. Never thought I could have too many. This only proves that I was right. So that's what I'm learning.
Fantastic. I bought a new pair of sweatpants actually from Amazon about a week ago. I had 2 pairs of sweatpants. Now I have 3.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think people are learning. I think as a society we're doing swimmingly with the adaptation. Yeah, sure, there's outliers and everybody likes to point them out, but I don't think they're the rule. I think the general rule is people have done pretty well with the social distancing stuff, and I mean, we're making Zoom a lot of money, and because we all figured that out, and yeah, no, and like the social media for a few days was nice, and then now the whole thing's been politicized again. But yeah, no, maybe it's just where I'm sitting, but from where I stand, like a lot of things just seem kind of like business as usual, and that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. I think it is highly contextual. I mean, it certainly depends on your specific point of view for us. And I think for Sherry and I, we both work from home anyway. So not a lot has changed other than, like he said in that email, having, the kids home, and, now you're also teacher. And for people, they're also soccer coach, and they're also piano instructor and all that. So that is an added layer for people, but a lot of it has been pretty business as usual for us. The thing I find most interesting is actually something we talked about in church this past week, Kendall. And it, you don't have to be a believer or a faith-based person, but like I think this is exposing the things that we each use, faith-based or not, to comfort ourselves, feel better, what the things that we turn to in moments of uncertainty, it's exposing that. And if you are a person who loves control, well, guess what? You don't have any right now. If you're a person who finds your worth in your social calendar, that's tricky for you right now. If you hid behind anything to cover up a difficult marriage situation or relationship or parenting situation, well, now it's staring you right in the face and you can't hide behind it anymore. So I think in that way, it's extremely interesting to see sort of how people are responding. And certainly we're talking more about the people who are probably more fortunate, middle-class folks, like just seeing how they're responding. We're not talking about the people who are still going to work every day, essential employees and things like that. I'm just talking about the way that it's sort of revealing aspects about ourselves, I find to be really interesting across the board. And I think for the most part, I would agree. I think especially Ohio, back to the email, I think Ohio's done a great job. And we've really flattened the curve, but it's been a month? We're in our 4th or 5th week now. And now we have, not protests, but, demonstrations at the Capitol building, and people are starting to, Dylan, you shared an infographic the other day that was the curve. And it's like, we better do something. And then like right nearing the top, we think we've hit the peak of it. And then we overreacted, right? there's when it falls off. And can you explain that and your thoughts on that? I thought that was great.
Yeah, it was the idea that if we took, and I don't know which way I'm drawing it, but you'll get the idea. If we took no action versus if we take action, and that curve is flattened is the term that we've heard everywhere. And right about near the peak of the flattened curve, there's a little arrow that says we're almost there. And there's a line drawn over just past the edge of the curve that says, see, we overreacted. And really the whole idea being that it's almost a danged if you do, danged if you don't. If we didn't do any of this, it could have been horrible, and everyone would have blamed for not taking proper precautions and putting the right things in place to keep us all safe. If you do the right thing, then we do flatten the curve, and then it appears as though we've overreacted because it wasn't as bad as they told us that it was going to be. And so it was a really simple chart to just say, it's almost like, well, I'm feeling better, so I don't have to take my antibiotics anymore. And the doctor's going to go, no, you got to keep taking them. You feel better because you're taking, and we're kind of in that spot where we've done a good job. We can continue to do a good job. And some of the people, ultimately, it's a very, very tiny number of people that are protesting in regards to the population of the entire state. But there are some that feel like it's been too long. It ties into all kinds of economic stuff. But people just need to try to do as much as they can, and we'll all get back to what we're doing. But it doesn't mean that we overreacted.
On that curve you're talking about, when it's going up, everybody is their eyeballs are glued to it. Like how concerned do we need to be? Do I need to be concerned about my family? They're glued to it. Now that it's going back down again, it's almost like they're freed up to have the luxury to complain about, we think we overreacted, because now their focus isn't on surviving anymore or toilet paper. It's like, now I'm impatient. It's been a month. Let's go.
Right. I think what a lot of people fail to realize is that they assume that the government or people at the very top know absolutely everything there is to know about this virus. And the fact is, it's novel, it's new, and they're learning now, and they're gathering statistics today and putting those things together and changing models and things of that nature. So it's kind of like they did what they thought they could do. Just because if a worst case scenario happens, it's bad. It's really bad. It might not have ever happened that way, but if it did, it's really bad. It's like taking your antibiotics. Like if you, like you had mentioned, it's in a lot of those cases, a person could stop taking their antibiotics and everything would be fine. In some of those cases, they didn't kill the infection altogether, and so then mutated or whatever just a little bit, and created something new and worse possibly. So sometimes that happens. If that happens, it can be bad, and so you want to finish off your antibiotics for that reason, even though it might have been okay.
Yep.
Good point.
Yeah, they didn't lie about the data all along. There were projections. We were doing the best we could with what we had, and I think the measures worked the way they were supposed to, and we need to keep doing it as long as we can all stand it.
Amen to that. Yeah, so, at risk of belaboring that last point, I just think, and maybe I'm an idealist, but I would hope that before we all resume life, we just look back at this season, however long it ends up being, and say, okay, what was hard about that for me? And what did that possibly reveal about the things that I turn to for validation, for my identity, for the things I turn to for comfort or whatever? And is there any learning there? And if so, maybe take that seriously. And if you're good, you're good. But I do think that this is a really unique opportunity for us to sort of reassess not only ourselves, but life. I don't know. That's too serious. Let's talk about TV. Episode 44, we talked about our favorite TV shows of all time and some unpopular opinions. And so we have a voice message from Charles about that.
Hey guys, I've got a twofer for you. Something that I was just never able to get into was the TV show Breaking Bad. I watched the whole first episode. I think I watched the second episode. Everybody had been raving about it and just never really got into it. And in my MIDI for the best TV show of the 2010s, actually, I don't know when it came out, but it would be Breaking Bad, because eventually I gave it one more try, and I think I got through the episode 3. I don't know, it was a slow hook for me, but on that second try, it just grabbed me, and I couldn't let it go. So that's my MIDI for the best TV show, and something I couldn't get into, at least not at first. Have a good one.
I want to point out something real quick. While he was speaking, you could hear a bird chirping, and right as he was saying, I just couldn't get into it, the bird went silent. And then while he was talking about how he ended up getting back into it, the bird started singing again. I don't know. You can read into that. I'm just saying.
You know Charles way better than we do, and apparently he's a very layered individual.
No, I'm not saying he was doing that on purpose.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm saying that Mother Nature was responding to what he was saying there.
I like how he worked in some of your pet peeves into the last one. Let's just ignore the fact that he ended up siding with me and not Dylan. But let's talk about...
It is Dylan's birthday after all.
Exactly. That's why we're not going to focus on the fact that he ended up agreeing with me. But if we were just going to look at his openness, that's what I love about people, They're like, wasn't feeling it at first. And then they gave it a legit shot. And maybe I would like anime. And maybe I would like some of the things that I could just never get into if I just sat down and gave it a chance. The question then becomes, how long do you need to give something a chance? What is your individual... It's like, Dylan, you used to say, what, you had like a 3-episode or a 10-episode, what was it?
If it's a movie, it's at least 10 minutes. I have to give the movie at least 10 minutes before I decide if I want to keep watching.
Okay.
If it's a TV series, it depends. If the episodes are 20 minutes, I might try to watch 5 or 6. If they're 45 minutes, I try to watch 3 and give it at least 3 episodes. And honestly, we joked about like Star Trek Deep Space Nine took like 2 seasons to find its feet. Like some stuff I can go, okay, this has clearly been a very popular show for 20 years. I just need to watch longer because there's something about it that people love. But if if it's a new show, 3 to 6 episodes, depending on length. A movie, 10 or so minutes.
It's funny that you're always doing this, like global you're always doing this cost benefit analysis going, okay, well, the show's been on for 10 seasons and people say it's really good. So you might be willing to go a little bit longer with that in mind than you would if it had 3 good seasons and then never came out again. So,
or, yeah, if it's a brand new show and there's only 2 seasons on something so far because it's still rolling, I don't know if it's going to be a good show. But for 20 years, if people tell me Breaking Bad is good, then eventually I'm just going to go, all right, I just need to watch it till the end because everyone says it's good.
And then there are shows that you're like surprised to hear are still on. Like, is Superstore still on?
Yeah.
And you watched that, right? You said it's good?
Yeah.
You know what? I wouldn't say I've ever really gotten into it, but I've seen several episodes just in passing. I've always enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. It's fine. It's
so much embedded in that. It's fine.
Okay, so my just as an example, because you specifically mentioned Superstore, from the creators, some of the creators of The Office, it's a great example of. I don't think it played up the right parts of what it was trying to do. You have a really inept crew and you have really wild customers, but the customer element is such a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the show. It's really almost exclusively about the inept workers. And the massive part of retail is the interactions between both, and especially the recurring characters of who keeps coming in and how they interact with who works there. So as somebody who lived that life for a long time, I felt like they really missed the boat, only making it about the inept workers interacting with each other and rarely interacting with their customers.
That's a great point, because a show like The Office, they rarely showed the customers because they were all in the office. I mean, they went on the occasional sales call.
Yeah, that made more sense.
You'd think with a show like Superstore, it's like, hey, let's explore this whole other layer of like,
and it's really
crazy.
They really missed it because you rarely have that many inept people working together. And so they're obviously playing that up to try to be funny, where you might have had a couple people like that, a couple people who, you know, are just hate everything about the job, but they're there because I feel like they missed what the show was supposed to be about. And so I keep watching it and there's some funny moments and I go, yeah, this is fine every time I watch it.
Mm-hmm.
It's amusing enough. I keep watching it because there's no other great comedies on right now.
Do you think it feels kind of derivative too? Like they're trying to jump on a bandwagon and they're just not doing it very well.
I don't know if that's the right word, because everyone's trying everything they can to be entertaining right now. So I don't want to fault NBC and call them derivative because they're trying.
I think he means of like The Office, Parks and Rec shtick, right?
It's like they looked at The Office and said, "Hey, let's do that."
I guess that's the issue though, in and of itself. It's The Office built into that over time. Everyone didn't start out inept. You had a couple crazy characters and some of these things built over time, which you can even explain away by saying, you know, the first season of The Office, everyone acts kind of quiet except Michael because this is the first few times the cameras are turned on and they know they're being watched. And over time, they start to care less about how they're perceived. You know, you could even build that argument into something like The Office, which wouldn't even be crazy. It's easy to accept something like that, where something like Superstore just kind of started out so wacky, and they missed the key part of it. If everyone in the office is mostly interacting with each other, you can't show interactions over the phone very well. I mean, you're limited to what you can do with that. And they have some of those crazy calls, and they have right away Michael calling somebody and saying sir and it's a ma'am, or vice versa. I don't remember the bit, but like they have some of that. I just think they really missed the boat on what Superstore should have been. Anyone who's worked considerable time in retail thought this could be great. when that show came out. That's the Target, the Best Buy people, the big box, the big mall, Macy's, and everyone that worked at any of those big stores had to just think this could be really good.
We're 46 episodes in, by the way, and we still haven't talked about, which I think are some of your best stories that you have under your belt, is your retail stories, specifically from CompUSA, back when that was a thing. Dude, those stories, I fall out when you tell me some of those.
I might have to write a few down. Maybe we'll talk about them.
Speaking of The Office, we have a Facebook message that I thought was great from Midler Sherry, not my wife Sherry. She's only listened to one episode ever. This is Midler Sherry with an S. She said, okay, I 100% agree with Kendall on the disgust of Jim's attitude. I love The Office, but his character is definitely my least favorite. It's the better than everybody attitude and the way he looks at the camera like a douche. I also agree on the Disney parks. I took my kids 3 different times thinking we were missing something. Nah, we'd prefer to drive to the beach and sit in the awful Florida humidity. One last note. You missed one of the traditional radio stations, The Fish. Traditional Christian music. Yes, they absolutely run every song in the ground. I don't know if I mentioned this in my pet peeve list last year, but I absolutely despise commercials that use children to sell something because they think it's cute. The worst is the Christian radio commercials that have kids saying that they listen to the station because it's safe for my ears and I love the Christian words because it's all about Jesus. Blah, blah, blah. It drives me crazy. Bloop, bloop. And that's coming from a woman who I know loves Jesus. So all good there. But yeah, that's so true. In fact, we wanted to have our dad on the podcast. And the first example he gives on why he's not ready to do that yet is like the car salesmen that have their kids on the commercial. He's like, yeah, don't you just feel like people would be like, they brought their dad on? Like, so come on, Dad. Maybe at like 100, you can come on.
I always wonder that kind of stuff too, but then I think they wouldn't keep doing it if it didn't work. Politicians wouldn't schmooze with their kids in the campaign ads if it didn't work. It clearly works on enough of us that people keep doing it. And so, as disgusted by it as some of us are, I don't know. It's different. And there's context, right? Us having our dad on the show, we don't get paid for this. This is a thing that we do for fun, to be entertaining. This is way different than me trying to sell somebody from my Audi dealership or trying to get elected for political office. There's very much context involved here. So yeah, I'm trying to cover Sherry's point. So Jim is a douche. I can see the angles for sure. Lots of people online share that sentiment. You're supposed to still like him because he loves Pam and they're the key romantic relationship. Disney, I get it. I mean, I don't know how to say it. There's so much. It's Jeremy said a little bit of it, I think, when he came on. There's so much that can go wrong at a park, and it can be hot, and you're in lines forever, and you're paying, out the wazoo for everything that you do. That I can see why most people aren't into that at all. I kind of look at some of that stuff as like, this is literally like a once or twice in a lifetime kind of thing. We'll look more fondly back on it than we did the time that we spent actually there. But it's really funny either way.
Kendall, you have to have thoughts. You seem to really align with Sherry's thinking.
Yeah, no, I mean, what she wrote are pretty much my thoughts. Yeah, no, I don't like Jim. From The Office, some of my best friends are Jims. Just not that one. Disney parks. Yeah, no, we've covered that. I have no desire to visit a Disney park. That doesn't mean I don't think I would have. That doesn't mean I don't think I would have fun. if I went with my family. It's just I'm not going to be the one pushing that forward. I don't see the big deal. It's just I have a few people in my life that that literally think that like you're gypping your kid of a piece of their childhood if you don't take them at least once. And when people say that, like I want to whack them.
It makes you want to go even less.
It makes me want to go even less. I'm like, I don't want to go to a park full of people I want to smack.
Yeah.
And then a part of why I wouldn't want to go to our nearest Disney park is because I don't like the weather in Florida whatsoever at any time of the year, and I don't listen to Christian radio stations. Not necessarily that I don't necessarily find them all that annoying. I just don't like the genres of music that they tend to. I mean, I do think that the one that we have locally, if their rotation is very tight and small, and their rotation songs rotate in and out very slowly. So I will listen to it a couple of times a year, and the rotation I know is very slow because I can listen to it now, even though I haven't listened to it for a year, and I know what the rotation is, and that's a problem, I think. But
let's put it this way, they're still playing Barlow Girl.
And they're driving Corey nuts.
Yeah.
I sent the link and people aren't hearing what I'm hearing, so I guess my brain is broken.
I will say that I think you're right that it's there. It's very subtle, and even when trying to listen for it, I think it's very subtle.
It just blows my mind, subtle as it may be, that can we call it an error? That error made it into the final cut, and nobody caught it.
Nobody caught it. Again, very subtle. very, very subtle to the point that I would say that I think you're probably right, but I'm not going to submit it as fact that you are right.
Okay, but everybody's burning question: should we have our dad as a guest on the show? I think he'd be a great guest. Anyway, we've got a list that's growing of guests we want to have on the show. That is one of our favorite things to do. We've already mentioned it at the top of the episode, but guys, definitely interact with us on the new From the Middle for the Middlers Facebook group, where you can interact with other listeners, and we will post things there, probably just more informal things there, sort of behind the scenes stuff there. And then keep the episode specific stuff and links to the stuff we talk about on the main From the Middle page.
I think for a group, what we don't want, we're not trying to make a group that's all about us. That would be silly. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. We want a group that's a place where people can come and connect and to have community that's maybe a little bit more specific and narrow than their overall Facebook page, right? So if you have, I can tell you right now, my vision for this group is a place where I can offload stupid memes that are going to make people vomit in their mouths. And so I want it to be a place where people will appreciate your weird.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you have if you have thoughts and opinions and questions or lists or polls that you're curious about when it comes to TV and music and movies and Lego and the things you hear us talk a lot about, then that's a good place for you to do that, because there's a better chance that you'll have a concentrated group of people who care about what you're saying. But I want to put the specific invitation out there that if you have something weird, I want to see it. That's all.
Let your freak flags fly. And just like Dylan has cleared his Netflix queue, we have now cleared our From the Middle inbox, and we need more stuff for From the Middlers 6. So the more you interact with us there, the better. We are still looking for odd and quirky and funny family stories. We don't have enough to do that.
We've gotten all kinds
yet.
of other stuff, which we love.
Yeah, we love all the other stuff. We've only gotten like 3 to 5 funny family stories, and they're good, and we want you to hear them. But
Hey, should we give an example of what it is we're looking for?
I thought we have multiple times, but let's do it again. That's a great point.
Okay. So one of you had mentioned someone who was however old when they realized that not everybody had a poop knife.
22 years old, this woman on the internet. Yeah.
I will tell you that in our household, we have a poop spatula that is used specifically for cleaning up animal feces off of floors and walls and furniture and things. So that's a little weird thing about our household is we have a very specific spatula. And if you're looking for a spatula in our home and you come across that one, you will get people running after you to tell you don't use the poop spatula.
No, not that one.
It's not for food. So there's an example. Your examples are probably funnier than mine, and we want to hear them.
That's right. No, I mean, not that they're going to be funny, but that we do want to hear them.
Oh, they'll be funny. There's funny. People are funny. People are weird.
That's
Families are funny and weird.
That's right.
So,
and you've been around your family for almost 5 weeks now. So you probably have some stories or could talk to them about stories from when you were growing up. We would love to hear them. We love interacting with you guys. This is seriously one of our favorite parts of doing this whole silly podcast thing is the interactions and the fun little trivial conversations that we have about McDonald's line etiquette. I mean, where else do you get gold like that? You're welcome. So keep the interactions coming. Do you guys have anything else you want to say before we sign out?
No.
Dylan, it's not your birthday anymore. It's 12:03. Hope you had a great day, man. Happy birthday, buddy. We love you.
Yep.
Thanks, Middlers. We'll see you guys next week. Episodes drop every Wednesday. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you. Stay safe out there. Cool cats and kittens.